The story begins with the MC sitting down. He is Jang Chul, a graduate student in Korea. Actually, this would be before, since the day before he suddenly transformed into the Demon King Kratos. The final boss of the game he likes and believes has an otherwise ordinary story. The goal of this game, called Paladin of Blood, is to revive the ancient hero who had fallen asleep, but he stops to think and decides it's not worth talking about it since it won't add anything. At that moment, his servant approaches. This is Zephyros, informing him that preparations for the war are ready. The army is in full force, and Asura is all excited, saying he wants to satisfy his hunger with the grand invasion they are about to launch. In the battle, there is also the Ice Monarch Sergi, level 531. Besides her, there is the Archduke of Mist, Hartok, level 555. Alongside him is the powerful Tyrant of the Black Rock, Baal, level 539. All of them stand before the king, thrilled. The MC gives a loud shout, telling the demon army to listen carefully. Everyone immediately starts paying attention. He begins by saying that he orders all demons that from that moment on, he makes a dramatic pause, leaving all his elite servants alert to what he is about to say. He ends by saying they will cease the attacks and begin practicing agriculture. Everyone goes silent for a moment and then starts screaming furiously, saying this is absurd. The MC is startled since they are all extremely terrifying, and he nearly soiled himself. But the expression he made was even more terrifying, enough to freeze everyone in fear. Jang Chul is aware that if the war begins, including a notification that informed him the 20th playthrough has started, the character stands up and looks to the side. This is Kimchi, level 9990, and the MC believes he will end up being finished off by him. Jang Chul graduated after studying agriculture at a Korean university with the hope of becoming a very rich farmer, and since he was a genius, he quickly became the best in the course. Because of that, people kept asking him for things like help writing their thesis, while others asked for help with a project, since they thought he was very good at what he did. The line was huge with people asking for things, even plowing the land. He was already exhausted since he had practically become an elite slave. The MC could only think about what a shitty life he was leading and didn't understand why he was doing the hard work, while his professors took all the credit. This caused him to have a fit of rage to the point of screaming that he would finish everyone off one day. At that moment, he had not a drop of dopamine left and would definitely go insane at some point. So the only moment he could get a drop of dopamine was playing video games. One game in particular was very hard to level up and finish, and in fact, no player had managed to complete it 19 times. So, in his pursuit to feel like he had accomplished something, he ended up pulling all-nighters playing, and this intensified over days, until finally, he became the first person to finish that game 19 times. Jang Chul, despite his defeated face from how tired he was secretly happy because now he was the strongest in the world, at least in the game. He is aware that his 20th playthrough will be at an absurdly hellish difficulty, and he will need to level up before trying because he wants to get stronger. With his inventory open, he had a very try-hard look and was already at level 9990. He is excited since the max level is 9999 and decides he will stop once he reaches it, and he doesn't even know how many years it took to get where he is. A notification then asks if he wants to start the 20th playthrough. He doesn't think twice and presses yes, and an intense light begins to come out of his TV, leaving him scared and asking what the hell that is. Immediately, his soul leaves his body screaming like never before until it enters the television. Right after, he appears in another place and begins to fall in free fall with a dumbfounded face. The MC simply can't believe what the hell is going on, but tries to stay calm since he's smart and might think of something. While falling absurdly fast, he tries to put the pieces together, realizing he is blue. So maybe that's his soul, thinking he probably won't die when he hits the ground. He also notices that on the horizon there's a giant tower, and concludes it's the Tower of Life, meaning he's inside the game Paladin of Blood. While still falling like a jet engine, he panics, asking if that in front of him is the Paladin's tomb. He crosses the tomb and thanks God, since apparently he's going to enter the body of his old character, the old Kimchi, who is almost at the maximum level. And it seems his life as a badass and invincible hero is about to begin. As he approaches the body, he realizes that his goofy skins aren't so pleasant outside the game and gets frustrated, since on second thought, he doesn't want to become that. Suddenly, his body starts heading in another direction and cuts through the sky like a rocket, still screaming about where the hell he's going. He spots the Demon Lord's body and begs not to be chosen for that one either, since he doesn't want to be him. Back in the present, Jang Chul, now in the body of Demon King Krita, sighs because thinking about all this makes his head explode. He breaks his head thinking, since if he hadn't had that stupid thought when he looked at his old Kimchi, he'd currently be in the body of a badass character and now feels way too dumb. Zephyros is walking toward him until he hears someone shouting that the Demon Lord has definitely gotten weaker. He looks toward the door where the shouts are coming from and sees the elite squad complaining that Krita only wanted to stop the attack because he got weaker, and Asura insists that they should team up to cut off the leader's head and divide the kingdom's command, since that's how Krita became king after finishing off the last Demon King. He asks what they'll do if the leader hasn't weakened, as at least 2 of the 4 would suffer massive damage or even lose their lives. Sergi says that if Asura volunteers to be their shield, then maybe they can try. Meanwhile, the rock tyrant can only think about how hungry he is. The prince agrees and asks what they'll do if they find evidence that the Demon King really has weakened. They all respond that in that case, he'll definitely be finished, except for Baal, who says nothing because he's hungry. The servant outside hears all this and just stays silent. Still in the castle, he reports to the king saying that the army's mortality rate has plummeted and that there was a case of people devouring each other, and some left the demon lands without warning. The MC listens attentively. Zephyros, looking at the king, says that the 4 great demon generals are furious and are even saying he's weakened and are planning to work together to cut off his head. Jiang Chul grows worried hearing this, because if the 4 attack together, he'll definitely lose his life. So if he appears weak, he's definitely done for. Only then does he realize and starts imagining his old Kimchi's body, and since he didn't enter the body, it's probably still a corpse. And thinking that way, he believes it's better to invade the human world. His servants approach with a crystal ball and say that it's the video of the Paladin's tomb sent by General Agmia. In the video, it was possible to see his old avatar finishing off the monsters mercilessly, even when they begged him to stop. The MC starts to go cold seeing that, especially since that's definitely his old avatar. He starts to worry since he needs to forget that idea. It even seems like a movie made by a lunatic, and he doesn't even want to breathe the same air as that avatar. So he believes he can't abandon the kingdom no matter what. However, he gets downcast since at this rate he'll look weak for surrendering, and the 4 demon generals will finish him off. Or he'll go to the Demon King, and Kimchi will gouge out his eyes and finish him off too. That said, he starts crying, not understanding why he ended up in that damned world, and why he can't just be happy. Only then does he get up, imagining there's only one thing he can do now that they've solved the food issue to calm the demons. His servant then asks where he's going, and he replies that he's going to take a look at the farmland. The servant apologizes, saying he didn't understand, and this leaves him confused, asking what he didn't understand. He replies that the mighty Lord Krita is narcissistic, arrogant, and completely rude, and that way of acting is totally disgusting and horrifying, so he asks him never to do it again. The MC starts wondering what the hell got into that guy, and if he's trying to provoke him, and doesn't know if he always had that personality. He is aware that Zephyros appeared only once before the battle against the Demon King, without any explanation, but this mystery ended up making him a very popular character. He remembers when he played as a paladin, That servant had said the Demon King no longer wanted to fight, so he politely asked him to return from where he came. Because of that, he defeated him with just one punch, and all Zephyros could do was lament being weak and unable to protect the Demon King. Thinking about it, the MC guesses that these dialogues made everyone think he was loyal to the Demon King and respected him greatly. The servant emphasizes that he never imagined such a blunder and that this is the first Demon King to lose so much trust from the demons. Zhang Qiu can only think that this guy is annoying as hell. Zephyros starts writing in his notebook and asks if by any chance he wants to practice agriculture in the demon land, saying he didn't know his memory was as good as a pigeon's. This enrages the MC, telling the kid to chill since he's talking to the Demon King. However, he refuses, saying he will continue. So, he leaves the castle and explains that both the current Demon King and the last one tried to use the land for planting, but in that dry environment with extreme temperature differences, he should know nothing can bloom. Credo says he feels the land is called the Land of Death, and, with a confident look, says that with his current abilities, it is indeed possible to restore it. However, inside, he knows he hates agriculture, even though it will be the reason for his survival. He then crouches and starts picking up soil with his hand, and then puts it in his mouth. Zephyros, seeing this, takes notes, writing that the Demon King became strange, even turning into a beggar who eats dirt. The MC, irritated, asks what the hell he is writing. The servant replies that he is just doing his job, writing the chronicles of the Demon King since it's important, and concludes that apparently the Demon King's memory has totally worsened. Zhang Qiu spits out the sand, realizing there are 0 nutrients and no nitrogen. After all, he knows nitrogen is absolutely necessary for plant growth. Even though it makes up 78% of the atmosphere, plants can't use it on their own. This is because nitrogen atoms form 3 covalent bonds, making a chemical reaction almost impossible. In other words, humanity developed a nitrogen fixation process through chemical engineering, which gradually increased food production. Unfortunately, he admits it's impossible there since nothing can be used as the basis for agriculture. He stands still, reflecting, as he needs to use nitrogen fixation from nature itself. His idea is to use lightning, since it has high voltage and will oxidize nitrogen, which will then mix with rainwater and be absorbed by the soil. He also remembers in the game what was the Demon King Kratos' main skill, since he scratched himself with his own hands and used his vital fluid to attack. A bloody strike that could instantly finish the MC. He knows the Demon King made lightning and humidity explode at the same time, a perfect technique to create fertile soil. Thinking about this strategy, he tells his servant to move back and uses the technique, scratching himself first, but starts screaming in pain, wondering if the damn Demon King is crazy for self-mutilating every time he fights since it hurts so much. Then he looks to the side and realizes his generals are watching, and they are increasingly sure the Demon King has weakened. He panics, knowing this situation is only getting worse, and Baal says he clearly got weaker. Hearing this worries Zhang Qiu, as he's more certain that guy is an assassin and his plan is to provoke until he finally finishes him. So he decides to self-mutilate again, since it's better than losing his life, and full of confidence uses his bloody technique, spraying his tomato sauce all over the soil, and after the whole act, he starts screaming in pain, saying it hurts like hell. At that moment, the generals approach and ask if he's feeling weak by any chance. He panics, knowing now the situation is really bad. Meanwhile, elsewhere, his old game avatar Kimchi imagines that his memories are vague from his past life and knows he lived that life more than 10 times and was even heading in the right direction. He looks at his hand, reflecting that the summoning of duty simply says nothing and that he simply no longer knows what his purpose in this life is. He breathes deeply and resumes walking all imposing with his level 9,990. Everyone has a sinister look, and Asura explains that the demonic plan follows well-known rules, since the strongest is the Demon King. The MC is completely scared. as each of them seems absurdly strong, and since he cannot use a simple skill, it seems he will lose his life very soon. From Asura's perspective, the pressure of the whirlwind is overwhelming, as the fight hasn't even started yet, and his whole body is trembling with that accumulated strength. Then he smiles and asks if, by any chance in his current state, he could defeat all the generals. When he asks this, he looks back and sees them all hiding behind a tree, becoming terrified because he doesn't know what his colleagues are doing. The three reflect that they will watch Asura get beaten, and if it seems feasible, only then will they join the fight. He starts sweating cold, realizing his friends are ruthless, but the generals agree. After all, they are demons, so they are evil. Zephyros turns on the big screen to broadcast the fight and says that according to the ancient tradition of demons, the duel will be broadcast live and, obviously, it is impossible to go back. Asura, panicked and terrified, asks to wait since nothing has been confirmed yet. Then, he raises his sword, trying not to be afraid, since he is almost certain the Demon King is really weakened. Jiang Chil grits his teeth, scared, not knowing what to do, because when he played, he believed the Demon King was incredibly powerful and even tested his strength when he obtained this body, but found it disappointing. Although strong, he is not invincible. Hardly thinking this, he notices the general attacking. He panics because that movement could be a thrust or a side slash, and there is definitely no way to dodge it. However, with extreme ease, he dodges, becoming confused if he really managed to evade it. The MC supposes that the second step, more specifically Asura's left foot, was turned outward, so it was obvious he would use a thrust. That's because the movement is completely identical to the game. After Asura misses the attack, the other generals reflect on what they just saw, as the Demon King's expression when dodging the sword seemed like someone ready to counterattack by biting the enemy's arm, and they don't understand why he didn't do that, so they will watch more. Asura attacks once again, but the MC dodges easily, finally understanding something as he realizes all the movements are exactly like in the game. Then he remembers that the first time he met Asura, he was completely speechless, as he didn't believe he was a character made to be defeated, since he had fast movements in irregular rhythms, plus attacks covering a huge area. Because of that, he was defeated once, then twice, until he lost countless times, and it was only on attempt 128 that he finally defeated him for the first time, and it was only on attempt 19, after defeating him the first time, that he finally managed to humiliate him without taking a single hit. The general was once again going on the attack, and the MC, after thinking about all this, gets excited, since there is no reason to be hit by that guy's attacks. The face he made was scary enough to make the other three generals tremble with fear behind the tree. Yang Chul begins to dodge the blows as if he were dancing. So easy it was, like a child's game. The three observing are incredulous, as the Demon King is having fun and doesn't even seem to take the fight seriously. On the other hand, Asura gets irritated by this, while the Demon King gets more and more excited, knowing that nothing resists a group attack. But he ended up noticing something more important. That world shares the same rules as the game. After reflecting on this, a notification appears saying he has understood the basic rule of that world. He looks to the side, confused, as that message is identical to the webtoon. Another message appears saying he also managed to dodge the enemy's attack with high concentration. At that moment, he charges forward with everything, but another system window appears informing that as a reward, a part of the game system used by playable characters has been unlocked. With this, the target function has been unlocked. He is still confused about what this means and realizes there is a kind of sight locked onto the target, and indeed remembers that it is an essential function for using special abilities. That said, he scratches himself once more and uses his bloody strike technique, spraying his ketchup on the target, which immediately burns due to the absurd power. The generals watching are terrified by such power and immediately shout that they knew the Demon King was not weak at all. Meanwhile, the MC stands before the burned body of the Asura, who is kneeling, His servant grumbles since he just lost, and seeing this leaves Jang Chul perplexed because in the game, the bloody strike would finish the enemy with a single hit, and he doesn't understand how he survived. To make things worse, he knows that General has absurd regeneration and will soon recover. So he uses his ability again, burning the Asura, and does this several times until all the generals tremble in fear at such torture as they witness the Demon King attacking in a way that will not finish the Asura, but will inflict a lot of pain. However, this was not the MC's intention since he doesn't understand why that guy isn't losing health and doesn't know what else to do. A notification appears saying he stripped all the clothes off the Asura, and now he has none. The MC is confused by what kind of random message that is, and asks not to speak as if he were a pervert. Because of this, a new system was unlocked, along with armor removal from the inventory. He looks at it confused, not knowing if this is a good thing, and can see the clothes he is wearing, even though he only has the set he currently wears, and believes it won't be very useful now. Then he considers that he needs to deal with that general first since his current strength is not enough to finish him, and because the guy's recovery is absurd, he will eventually get back up. Only then does an idea come to his mind. Since that general still hasn't lost health, he can mark him and keep firing the bloody strike. He thinks this is a brilliant idea since it will inject a lot of nitrogen into the ground without anyone noticing. At the same time, he notices the other generals are scared stiff behind the tree after what they witnessed, so the plan won't face problems. Thinking this, he calls Sergi and asks her to tie the Asura tightly. She starts sweating nervously since she's being ordered to tie up a man almost naked, and it seems he wants to humiliate both the guy and herself at the same time. Still, she obeys and ties the unlucky one to a cross, as this is the MC's first step, which is to prepare the lightning rod. Meanwhile, the Asura's regeneration is at full speed until he finally wakes up, declaring the immortal is back, and shouting that apparently the Demon King can't even finish him with bloody strike, and that he really got weaker, promising now to have his head torn off. But to his bad luck, Jang Chul starts using his technique, burning his body constantly until he's screaming in pain, as this is the second step. And the MC is always aware that nitrogen in the air will oxidize and turn into nitrite. Then he calls Hartok, ordering him to cover the whole area with mist, making it as dense as possible to the point water drips. He gets excited hearing this, as apparently the Demon King wants to make the ground ready so thundershocks hurt more, and finds this torture method creative, even liking to learn it. Without hesitation, he starts using his technique, and now the third step is complete, which is spreading the mist. Then he moves to the fourth step, which is attacking a bit more, so he keeps cutting himself and screaming inside, imagining how much that hurts. Zephyros watches without showing any reaction, unlike the generals who are terrified watching this possible torture method, since it's not letting the Asura's body rest from so many blows and ketchup spraying everywhere. Jang Chul is excited because this way he'll manage to create nitrogen-rich soil, and if the harvest is a huge success, he'll be even more motivated. Because of this, despite the pain, he keeps attacking the whole afternoon until sunset. After all this, he grabs some sand in his hand and realizes it's getting good since he just needs to keep injecting nitrogen like that, and the next step will be improving the soil. He knows that loose soil with a single granular structure does not allow oxygen to enter and has poor drainage. So, for agriculture, the ideal is soil with an aggregated granular and fluffy structure. He stands up pondering what the next step will be and, with a frightening look, orders everyone to collect their own poop. The three are paralyzed after everything they witnessed, and, unable to believe it, they reflect that the Demon King still wants to throw feces at Asura, even after all the torture he caused, since that is cruelty even for a demon. Meanwhile, the next day, Kimchi is walking through the forest until he hears someone asking for help. He turns and sees two people begging him to help. He does not respond, and the crying man says they were attacked by goblins and will give a reward if he helps them. Kimchi approaches with his frightening face, leaving the two guys completely terrified. He extends his hand, asking them not to be afraid, as he is not a suspicious person, but they, scared, can only imagine that this guy is much worse than suspicious to the point of being frightening. He then asks if by any chance one of them hurt his leg, and then grabs him by the shoulder and asks him to please show the way. The man says yes, and the Asrahan being carried confesses to being surprised to see such a strong man, and says he is an emissary, and then asks who he is. Kimchi takes a deep breath, and continuing the journey, says he still needs to find out. Back at the castle, the three generals are sitting at the table, thoughtful. Hartok, incredulous about what he has to do, asks how the hell they are supposed to carry their own shit literally, and if they might have to do it on the spot. Sergei trembles the whole time, finding it crazy as well as disgusting and repulsive. Bale says it's been a long time since he ate, so he won't be able to poop, and adds that Sergei doesn't poop either. She gets furious about him talking about her and shouts for him not to be talking about other people's orifices. The monocle makes it clear that even if they could poop that easily, he wouldn't want to have to deliver his own shit, and so suggests beating the lower demons and making them poop. Saying that, they go to the villages and make the demon poop, while he begs them to at least leave the room, since if everyone watches, he won't be able to. He then asks them to please wait outside. The guard says the other demons said the same thing, and in the end, couldn't poop. Hardly had he said that when Hartok enters the room asking why it's taking so long and starts walking toward the demon, wanting to know why he is not providing what was requested. The lower demon, terrified, apologizes to the Lord and says he hasn't eaten for a long time, so it will be hard to let out a turd. The general grabs his neck and with his dark aura thanks him, saying it gave a great idea. Then he uses only the shadow claw toward the demon, who screams desperately asking him to stop. At that moment, Bal appears and grabs the general's hand, stopping him from continuing. Hartok does not like this at all and asks why he stopped him. The big guy replies that a pure stomach loses life, but a dead one doesn't poop, so there has to be a way for them to poop more so they can collect. The monocle then releases the captive and says it was a very intelligent idea considering who it came from, and with a somber expression asks if feeding them all with the meat of a certain daring general will make them poop all at once. The tyrant does not like what he heard and also releases his aura, leaving the demon completely terrified since the two simply charged at each other, able to destroy the entire village. At that moment, the demon king appears casting his skill and asking what the hell they are doing. After hurting both, he states that the lower demons are not the only animals that can poop. After that, they gather at the castle, and the MC says that feces have no nutritional value, so they have no use, which is why they need to look for feces that can be used to make fertilizer. Zephyros questions what the hell that is, and he replies that basically it is the ingredient that provides nutrients to the soil. He further explains that normally fertilizer is made with wood ashes, herbs, soil, eggshells, and chicken poop. So for the wood ashes and herbs, they could just use the empty houses they saw earlier, but the problem would be the eggshells and chicken poop. Thinking about this makes an idea come to his mind, so he asks his bouquet for the map of their land. With the map in hand, he reflects that, as expected, it is the same map that comes in the game. So it means he can get what he needs as soon as he reaches a certain location. The specific location is the habitat of the demonic seagulls. He knows this because in the game there are many of them all over the fields, and this indicates that the seagulls can absorb a large amount of nutrients from human lands. Besides that, they poop and lay their eggs in the same place, so the place is perfect. Zephyros asks if by any chance the king is planning to collect the feces of the demonic seagulls. He is surprised since his servant understood things quickly. The Four Eyes then comments that this place is called the cliff from which no one can return, and there are no stable routes to climb, and if you fall, you'll be caught by the tide. Zhang Chul stands up saying he already knows all that, but he thinks that place is not allowed by the system for players to approach. Now, as the Demon King, he simply says he can just climb that cliff. They then go to the cliffs, and the generals are curious about what the Demon King is thinking. The MC is aware that many have already tried to reach those seagulls since ancient times, but they all ended up being preyed on by the waves. He turns and says he's going to climb to the top and throw the bag that will be full of feces and eggshells, and that's why they must make sure to catch it. Then, excited, he says that if this plan works, everyone will be able to eat well. Bale keeps staring at him and remembers that the people of the village, besides being defenseless, were literally starving. Jiang Chul walks toward the waves and reflects if it was on his 13th attempt, since he tried everything to get there. He remembers trying hundreds of times, losing his life every time in the process. He then jumps, and all the generals watch him heading toward the cliff until he finally grabs on, because he is aware of a glitch. He grips the rock firmly, and everyone stays alert watching since it's extremely dangerous. Immediately, the Demon King opens his equipment inventory and simply disables all his clothes, becoming completely naked. The generals don't quite understand what they are seeing since they are looking toward the Demon King, and he is merged with the cliff, with his butt sticking out. Everyone is outraged by what they're being forced to see, while the MC keeps trying to turn his body, and Sergei, being a woman, turns her face away asking what the hell he's doing. At the same moment, he equips everything again. His clothes return, but he stays on the wall, and Sergei, still trembling, finally looks, since at that moment, it must be safe. But once again, the MC rolls his body and unequips everything, getting bugged once again inside the hill. Then, he gets dressed and takes off his clothes. He gets dressed once more and takes off his clothes until he finally reaches the top, stating that he made it. He was aware that in a world where the game system works, it was necessary to have an equipment inventory in the map's peak that supposedly no one should reach. So, putting all these pieces together, he had tested and convinced himself that it was possible. At this moment, Baal says that the Majesty had said that everyone will be able to eat again, and therefore will help, and runs off at the same moment. But Zephyros shouts not to do that since it is something only the king can do. The MC turns with all that shouting, and the big guy jumps saying he will follow the Majesty. However, the king shouts asking what are you doing since it is not possible to grab, and because of that, the general started to fall. Immediately, the MC grabs his hand and tries to hold on tight, using the bug once again. He makes an absurd effort, thinking that it is heavy as hell, and if it continues like that, he will have his arm ripped off. Only then does he realize why he is trying to save that dumb beast, since he is one of the 4 demonic generals, and, in fact, a threat, and questions himself if it wouldn't be better to get rid of him. After looking for a moment at Baal, he starts to sweat cold, and remembers once when a student cried, asking please to help just that once, since the professor would not let him submit the thesis. So, at every moment, he begged please if he could talk to this professor, since at least that way he would take a look at the project. With tears in his eyes, he says that the professors love him since he is the best, and will probably listen, so he insists. The MC just stays silent since that guy was just a junior, and as he himself was the #1 slave, maybe the professor would listen. But coldly he responds that this is his problem. After leaving, he was afraid of owing a favor that could put him in a disadvantageous situation. He gets angry, since maybe if he had given his best beyond his limits, that boy's face in his memories could be smiling. Because of that, he holds the general's hand firmly and starts to make all the possible effort, even though it is difficult because of the bug. He keeps gritting his teeth with all his strength, and after letting out a scream, he pulls the big guy with all his effort, even with his arm cracking in all parts. He does not give up, and, pulling with all the strength he had, throws the tyrant to the top of the hill, landing safely at the top of the mountain. Then, he also climbs up and starts groaning in pain since he had his arm injured. Baal says that he was confused since the Majesty saved him at the cost of getting hurt and had no reason to do that, and so he asked why he did it. The MC takes a deep breath and responds that it hurts less than abandoning a follower and regretting it later. These words touch the general to the point that tears come out of his eyes, and all that Yang Chul could imagine was that he should also have done that for that student, and so, in his heart, he apologizes, asking for forgiveness since at the time he did not do it. At this moment, a notification appears saying that even in a state where he has not yet fully adapted to the body of the Demon King Kratos, he managed to use all his strength. As a result, he managed to earn the sincere gratitude of Baal, one of the 4 generals and demons. He reflects if this is how the big guy looks when he is grateful. The notification also says that, in honor of this achievement, a system was established to provide his army with an abundant feeling of happiness, which earns him a large number of points. He becomes thoughtful about this, since he is not sure what would be considered a good amount of points, and the happiness point accumulation system has been opened. The MC reflects on this since, in fact, he knows because it is something that gives you the right to a free ice cream, and he does not know if that place really sells ice cream. The system responds that obviously not and asks what kind of game world would sell ice cream. This dry answer scares him. The notification says that for each soldier in the demonic army who feels happy with a full stomach, he will earn 1 happiness point and can use these points to buy attributes. It also explains that currently, he is only able to use 20% of Lord Demon Kratos' strength. So, this is how his attribute distribution stands, with resistance, mental strength, physical strength, and magical power at 20%, and the next step will be to increase them by 10%. The system asks him to try to increase all 5 attributes and reach 100% of the Demon King's strength. He is intrigued by this and decides that he will try, starting by buying 10% more of resistance. But to buy the 10% of resistance, he needs 50 happiness points and currently has 0. He is also informed that he can use happiness points to buy skill upgrades, and the skill he currently possesses is Bloody Strike, which is at level 1, and the points needed to level up are 250. He reflects that apparently he cannot do anything yet, but if he manages to cultivate properly, he will be able to gather a lot of happiness and, consequently, become powerful, further increasing his chances of survival. He looks closely at the general and realizes that being appreciated by someone is too delicious, thinking about it with his sinister face. From Baal's perspective, the Demon King's face makes it clear that he will tear him in half if he does not listen to what he has to say, since he owes his life to him, and is aware that Lord Demon Kratos is very evil and does not believe that he saved him out of kindness. The MC gets up and shouts, calling the generals, warning that he put shit in that eggshell and will throw it down there, so they should make sure to catch it. They are outraged by this, but he throws it, telling them to catch the crap. They are bombarded with shit flying in all directions, and the MC is increasingly excited, asking them to give it their all. He says that the first step to producing fertilizer is seagull poop, burnt ashes, and preparing the farm soil. The next step is to gather everything and mix it well. That said, he asks Sergei to mash all that crap and mix it. She is incredulous at that order and asks if she understood correctly, and he reinforces that she has several arms, so she should do what he is ordering. The general does not hold back her fury and shouts that she is the Ice Monarch and her arms were not made to mix shit. The MC asks if she is sure about that, since he will then give her an easier task and points to the cross, warning that if she does not want to do this, she can just stand still up there. Sergei wastes no time and starts mixing the fertilizer with all her energy since she does not want to suffer from the Demon King's attacks. Rang Chul breathes a sigh of relief since for a moment he got scared because that group is all hot-headed, so he can never let his guard down. His only certainty is that now he is the Demon King and will use each of them to achieve his goals. Now, The second step in fertilizer production is to add water, and so he orders Hartok to fill that area with mist. He asks if he is sure since the bad smell will become even harder to bear because of the humidity, and does not understand why he would do that. This time, the MC says nothing and just points towards the Asura tied to the cross. Immediately, the monocle understands the message and flies over the region to fill it with mist. Then, the MC goes to Baal and asks if it got moist enough. He replies that it is quite soft after adding the water, just as His Majesty had instructed. Jiang Qiu imagines that the third step now is to leave the fertilizer in a dry place covered by a sheet made only of seagull feathers. But he is aware that doing these things takes too much time, and if he really wants to make enough fertilizer to cover a vast part of the land, he will have no choice but to mobilize all the demons, even the lower ones. But he confesses that this is something that bothers him, although it needs to be done at any cost, even if it is necessary to use his authority as the Demon King. Meanwhile, elsewhere, in a cabin in the demon realm, a man is with his child, and the girl calls for her father. The man asks what the problem is. Flute, with tears in her eyes, begs him to please devour her. Her father says once again not to keep saying such things, but the girl just says that she misses her mother. The man is in shock hearing this, as a giant monster was about to devour his daughter because it was very hungry, and all the child could do was scream desperately as that enormous mouth was approaching to devour her. At that moment, her mother steps in front with her arms open. Flute just watches, with tears in her eyes, her mother smiling in front of her. But the next moment, she is completely devoured with a single bite. After thinking about all this, he comments that he will have no reason to live if his daughter is no longer there, and asks what the point is of continuing to live. At that moment, he hears someone entering the cabin, as it is the Demon King with his generals. The MC asks if he still has the strength to scream and orders them to take him away. He screams desperately, asking them to wait, since his daughter is there, and if they leave her in that state, the high-ranked demons will devour her. With not much to do, Dirak is taken by Baal, while the child screams for her father. Zephyros says that they already have 20 demons, but that they will need more. At this moment, Jiang Qiu looks back and sees the child crying, remembering that in the game he was faced with that defenseless girl, and, unable to accept it, he frantically pressed the controller, making his character deliver the final blow without hesitation. He sees once again then that same child, but now in his new reality, and after resuming his walk, he passes by all the guards and shouts, ordering them to stop with those despicable acts of devouring their own kind, in addition to ordering Zephyros to gather the remaining demons that are missing. Since he wants to see everyone making fertilizer at that very moment, he is aware that he is the Demon King, and that tyranny at that level is acceptable if he wants to achieve his goals, and the role of a leader is to make sacrifices. Time goes by, and the lower demons keep going full steam, beating the fertilizer. Dirak pauses and asks why they are losing their strength during all those days, as cultivating seems ridiculous. His friend tells him to shut up, as he will lose his head if the Demon King hears that. He says that it is no use, as they will lose their lives anyway, and even if the land becomes fertile, there is nothing to plant. At that moment, the MC appears asking if he is curious about what they are going to plant. He despairs, as it is the Demon King, and says that is not what he meant, but Jiang Qiu just asks him to follow. He remembers that the other day, the purple flower he saw in passing was something that could be planted. They go to that place and the lower demon asks if he is coming correctly. You answer yes, since they are going to plant the seed of that flower. And, moreover, Baal, along with some workers from the squads, has already collected that flower in several places. Dirak asks politely, in case it is impolite, and says that this flower is not suitable for eating, since, when consumed, it contains a type of poison that causes immense abdominal pain that could even kill someone powerful like the king. Jiang Qiu pulls the plant out of the ground and says that there is nothing in that land that can be chewed and that they will have to test to see if it is possible to eat that plant since they must have finished. The demon apologizes since he did not understand what was meant by the test. The MC replies that it is exactly that since, at that very moment, his little daughter must be tasting that plant. Durak despairs upon hearing this since it is a death sentence for her and runs out desperately asking why they are doing this to his little one and begs, please, that she has not eaten it. He enters the house shouting for Flute not to eat that flower. However, he cannot believe what he is seeing since the little girl was happily eating that seed and even said that she felt no pain, and moreover, her belly was full. Her father, still trembling because he was desperate, asks if she is really okay. She replies that yes, and that, moreover, Lord Zephyros and Lord Baal fed her the day before too, and she is not feeling anything bad. At this moment, the MC appears asking if, by any chance, he believes now, since the humans from a certain land also made poisonous plants edible, and they managed to cultivate it correctly, this helped to solve their hunger problems. Then, with his sinister smile, he says that this food is known as potatoes. Flute, completely happy, tells the demon lord that she cannot believe he is showing so much kindness to a low-ranking demon and therefore thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Because of this, the system notifies that part of the demonic army feels happy after eating, and so he received happiness points for the first time. Now, he has 1 happiness point. He looks at the system screen surprised and sees how happy the little girl is. This reminds him once of the scene where that demon girl in the game was thirsty, desperate for food, and now, in his new reality, this same little girl has tears in her eyes from being so happy. He smiles, imagining that he is a demon king and does not need to be serious all the time, and with a horrendous face warns that a worm like her just needs to eat until she is full and grow up healthy. Everyone in the room is terrified by this phrase, imagining that he is saying this because he wants to fatten her up, only to then devour her, and he is definitely an evil demon king. The castle is located in the deepest place of the vast territory of the demon king, the Chaven of Antor. The territory is divided into 5 areas, and that is the deepest of them. The region at night is freezing, and during the day, it is scorching. This climate is similar to the Andes Mountains. In the past, the people of the Andes did not have enough to eat, so they ended up eating wild poisonous potatoes. However, humans are different since even things that were not made to be eaten, they make edible. Meanwhile, Durak does his part of the job and shouts to the demon king that he has already spread them all. Jiangqiul shouts to Baal to crush them all. He wastes no time and jumps, hitting the ground squarely and crushing them with his huge foot. The MC just watches and reflects that they froze those potatoes for 5 nights, so they are using Baal's meteoric crushing after melting them during the day, since this will make the poison leak out and evaporate. So basically the process is freeze, melt, crush, and evaporate. After repeating this process, my medication and storage so that they can be lightly cooked. By doing this, the potatoes will become wild dehydrated ones that can be consumed and are called chunos. Then, he turns around and orders the agriculture squad, who is making fertilizer, to gather, shouting that it is finally snack time, hoping they will enjoy eating that. And with that, all the workers gather in line, and he explains that they do not have much food, so each person can only take 2. Zephyros, curious, comments that they have plenty of wild potatoes, and therefore wants to know if they can't just make more. He replies that he doubts there are that many, as it is nowhere near enough to feed the entire demonic army. Then, with his evil smile, he says that obviously they need to plant the remaining potatoes so that they can harvest 1,000 times more. The lower demons hold them in their hands and ask if they can really eat, since it is a poisonous root, and even some of their relatives died after consuming it. Durak says once again that the demon king made them edible, and even Flute ate it and was just fine. The demon calls him a fool and asks him to look at the demon king, because that expression is not from someone who would be giving something willingly, and it is so frightening that he comes to a conclusion. They just want them to eat that so they can later see them lying dead on the ground because of the poison. Dirok, fed up with their doubts, just throws the potato into his mouth, and the workers see him eating and ask if by any chance he really has gone crazy. But the demon just swallows, and crying with joy, shouts that he wishes long life to the Demon King. With that, the agriculture squad was filled with confidence after seeing the first person eat, so they devoured it immediately. Then they direct their gaze to the king and wonder if a tyrant would really give them something edible. Everyone shouts excitedly and raises their hands, reciting "Yes, Credos," which is the salutation for the demon lord. He reflects that he really never liked that and will definitely need to change it later. Meanwhile, his servant watches him and realizes that the expression of the Demon King is from someone who has no doubt that he will be able to generate food from that infertile land, and begins to believe that he can really put an end to the tragedy caused by hunger. Immediately, the system appears saying that part of the demonic army is happy to be fed, and therefore he received 50 more happiness points. The current points now are 51. The MC is surprised to see this and smiles, since it is quite a decent amount of points, and he will be able to get a little stronger. Then, he keeps racking his brains since he doesn't know which attribute will be better for himself, because he has no idea, and maybe for now, it is better just to save the points and keep accumulating more. Then he imagines that they need to separate the fertilizer squad from the potato harvest squad. He barely thinks about it, and Zephyros calls the attention of the agriculture squad and orders them to tell everyone in the village, after work, that even infertile land managed to generate food, and also promises that any demon who harvests wild potatoes will receive food coupons that can be exchanged for chunos. This time, it is the MC who observes and confesses that the guy is as smart as he looks, and, although he is annoying, he is still useful. With this order, all the demons started picking the potatoes for him, while the generals also did their jobs. As for Asura, things are not going very well since the demon lord ordered him to be carried to a certain point in the ground until finally being hung in that place. Only then did he start using his skills, making the general's body burn in flames, since he needs to work hard to produce nitrogen, and that is the only way. After a while, the MC reflects that he already has enough fertilizers, and that it is time to take the next step, since they need to spread the fertilizer evenly across all the soil. But the problem is that the earth is too big and it is too much for the agriculture squad to handle. Meanwhile, the general, hanging on the cross, just asks to be finished off at once, but Zhang Chou doesn't want to talk and hits him again, since a demonic general still works well, even while starving, because he will be able to work for a long time. However, he gets frustrated, as he really has no choice but to wait. Because of this, he returns to the kingdom and asks his servant if he really requested more troops from the Star Masters. He replies that yes, and explains that they ordered the attacks to cease in order to provide as many troops as possible for agricultural activities, and even though he sent messengers to the master of each of the 4 star areas, they have not yet received any response. The MC wonders if the messengers succumbed to hunger along the way, since unfortunately, it will be very complicated to spread the fertilizer with the current number of troops they have there. Meanwhile, in the 1st star area, the Precipice of the Dead, in the Demon King's territory, a servant reports to his chief that, based on the Sentry's report, the Demon King Kredos really started to cultivate and apparently even managed to create some edible things. The powerful demon takes a deep breath and states that the MC is afraid of him, since he himself becomes more powerful as more demons lose their lives, and by having stopped waging war, he is reducing the number of deaths by hunger to keep him weak. This is Saruthal, 1st Star Master and Father of the Dead. He asks if his servant has already dealt with the messengers who were sent to other star areas. The elite demon replies that yes, and for that reason, the other masters have no information about the end of the war and the agricultural activities. The Lord is satisfied, since the more demons lose their lives by starvation, the better for himself, and he states that eventually he will finish Kratos and thus become the new demon king. Then he calls Ficamir's attention and orders him to destroy anything related to Kratos' harvest. His servant replies that he will do it immediately. After that, the Asura remains confined on the cross, and Ficamir sees this and comments that indeed, Kratos is truly evil, as he turned one of the generals into a living corpse to serve as an example. However, he asks the Asura not to worry, as Lord Saruthul likes that ferocity, and therefore says that he will accept him as a servant to finally finish Kratos. Then he activates his Spectre's ability and shouts for them to completely destroy that land, so that it can never be used again. The little ghosts mobilize at full speed, and one of them says that what is there is animal manure, as they were informed. Ficamir does not think twice and orders them to spread that shit all over the soil, since this is going to be his evil plan. The specters obey and start throwing the dung all over the soil, while their master makes it clear that it is to be thrown in such a way that it can no longer be reused. So they are to spread it evenly to the point of mixing it with the soil in such a way that not even a single piece of manure can be seen. At this moment, the Asura sees what he is doing and remembers a conversation that the Demon King had, in which he said that they need fertilizer to be ground and mixed into the soil, but doing that is very complicated, so it will be impossible for the agriculture squad to spread all that shit through the soil. And then he sees in front of him Saruthul's dog doing exactly that with his specters, thinking he's making an impact, and so he asks what the hell he's trying to do there. Meanwhile, that's still not it. A specter stops to rest and says that it never ends. The others start complaining since everyone has to work equally, because if there's a piece of land that hasn't been damaged, the demon lord will turn it into a cultivation area. The specter gets confused since number 2718 is working hard that day, even though he's always lazy, so he wants to know what happened. He turns around and replies that, actually, he doesn't know, but confesses that when he looks at all the work they've done, he feels proud, as if he had done something productive. The specter doesn't really understand, and starts laughing since he thinks that's very stupid. Meanwhile, the others keep going at full steam, even if they're idiots, and comment that there's still a lot to do. They're thinking they're really good at it, but they realize that the sun is rising, and they hadn't noticed it before. Because of that, their bodies start disintegrating since they lost track of time because of the work, and now they will lose their lives. However, they don't feel so sad since losing their lives wasn't so bad, because they were productive in the end. After those words, they all disappear in the scorching sun, and Ficamir just cries for losing his specters and asks that at least they find peace. With that done, he just wants to see how Kratos will react to it. Meanwhile, in a warehouse, Zephyros reports that the field harvest took longer than expected, but at least they finished. The MC replies that that's good, and that all those potatoes are in a dormant state, since that way they didn't produce seeds, so they won't be useful if planted. He says that it's as if the potato were calmly sleeping in the earth and someone suddenly pulled it by the hair. They would enter a kind of shock attack, and then their biological clock would pause. He reflects that the dormant state will end more quickly if they are left for 2 or 3 weeks at 4 degrees Celsius, and then suddenly move to somewhere warm and dark. An alternative would be to ask Sergi to imbue the potatoes with her cold energy, but the woman is completely furious, just like Hartok, who is in the same situation. He believes he couldn't withstand an attack from both at the same time, so he needs to be careful with what he asks. He explains that the good thing is that there's no problem increasing the storage temperature to about 23 degrees since he just ordered the soldier farmers to do some squats. However, these demons get tired very quickly, so it was a complete failure. He gets thoughtful about this and calls Zephyros to go see the farms since he just wants to do what he can at the moment because he at least needs to imbue the soil with nitrogen. After arriving at the place where Asura is, he can't believe what he's seeing since, for some reason, the earth is all overturned. He also notices that the stench is filling the whole area, and that this doesn't mean it's ready for planting, but he doesn't understand what miracle that was. Meanwhile, Ficamir is hiding, bursting into laughter, thinking that he managed to frustrate King Kratos's plantation and that his tactic was an absolute success. However, Biael appears behind him and takes him to the MC, saying that he found a rat hiding in that place. Zhang Qiol soon realizes that it's Ficamir, one of the chiefs of the Cliff of the Dead, and believes that he, a demon, appeared there on his own after hearing about reinforcements. To know better, he asks what he's doing. Ficamir tries to say something but takes a punch right in the mouth that almost knocks out all his teeth. Zephyros is confused and asks why the hell he hit the guy before he had a chance to answer. The MC explains that it seemed like he was hiding something, so hitting someone like that almost always solves the problem. He, with a battered face, said he expected nothing less from the Lord Demon and guarantees he won't open his mouth easily. As soon as he says that, he starts getting beaten like a criminal by the police until the MC stops, saying that this shit is really tiring. Because of that, the system appears asking to use points to increase attributes and shows the system window once again, informing which attributes can be increased since he has 51 points at the moment. He decides to use 50 points to increase his resistance, and it goes up from 20% to 30%. Now he goes back to beating the thugs since his resistance is higher and can hit for longer, spending the whole afternoon doing this until the dog speaks up and reveals that he was ordered to destroy the farms to make everyone starve. Knowing this, the MC returns to the castle and realizes that, in the end, Sarathul was responsible for the things that happened and admits he understood quickly since that demon gets stronger the hungrier more demons are. Four Eyes comments that it's an act of revolution, and they even have a new chance if they manage to take down that Sarathul, as the demons who were complaining about the expedition's suspension will see it as a warning. The MC gets lost in thought because, even if that's not a problem, the others will keep disrupting his crops, and he can't just let them go, so he needs to deal with it somehow. Zephyros starts to explain that the problem is defeating that boss, but Zhang Qiol interrupts him, saying he already knows that guy has the ability to transform his body like a ghost's. He even knows that in the game Sarathul was everywhere on the Dead Cliff, which is already a difficult map. So the entire map was like a game of hide-and-seek against him, and since he knows it's hard to get rid of the pests because they hide well, he believes he'll have to force the pests out of their nests. Elsewhere, Flute is looking up in Asura's direction, and he, irritated, asks what she's looking at. She feels a little embarrassed, thanking him since she saw that thanks to his sacrifice they have food to eat. However, he becomes completely furious hearing that, and shouts wanting to know how she dares to mock like that, threatening both her and her family for being stupid. The girl starts running scared. He remains furious, just waiting for the right moment to leave there, confident he'll find a way to end the Demon King's life. As soon as he says this, something catches his attention, making him look to the side, since on the horizon there was a poster with someone singing that they are happy. On the banner, it was written, "Congratulations, second lightning rod of the office." Everyone was singing with joy for the help they received, but Asura doesn't understand what the hell that scarecrow is. He gets emotional since maybe he'll be free now, because there's another one who took his place and he won't need to look like a roasted chicken day and night anymore. However, the story went differently, and the MC placed one next to the other and used his fire ability. Both start to catch fire, and only then does the general realize that this means there will now be two to be used as lightning rods, and so the situation dragged on all afternoon. Saruthal was watching this through his crystal ball, and because of it, he started shouting, calling for his compatriot. Zhang Qiol doesn't stop attacking for even a moment and makes Ficamir agonize in pain from being burned all the time. His boss cries seeing this and says that it must hurt like hell. At every moment, the MC attacks, and the little dog of the god screams in pain, and can only beg him to stop since it must be too painful. At that moment, the MC looks to the side and notices a creature holding a crystal ball as if it were backstage in a game, and concludes that Saruthul is watching everything. This irritates him, imagining it so that the bastard regrets trying to mess with his crops. After that, the heat remains scorching because of the sun, but Flute doesn't stop helping with the soil for a minute. Next to her is Asura, who upon seeing the little girl with a small shovel, decides to call her to ask what the hell she is doing. She explains that the Demon King, along with the 4 great generals and all the other adults, are working hard to take care of the crops, and that's why she herself wanted to help in some way. He laughs, since apparently the little girl is just a low-level demon, and says that the idiot next to him already plowed everything by himself, so she can go do something else to be useful. Flute is happy to hear that, and thanks Fikimir, since besides plowing the fields, he also served as a lightning rod. He can't accept that, but thinks the girl is adorable because she said he was useful. The general thinks the guy is funny since he only plowed a tiny piece of land and is already full of himself. And he asks if he really believes that farming in that world will yield anything, believing that the damn potato doesn't even sprout properly. And from what he's heard, if you heat the potato stalk, the sprouts come out faster. But he finishes by saying that everyone will end up dead anyway. He barely finishes saying that, and the little girl runs off thanking him for the tip and disappears into that orange land. Asura takes a deep breath and confesses that he finds it funny how a little girl that size is trying to be useful in a dump like that. Back at the castle, Zephyros asks the MC if Saruthul is really going to show up there to save his little dog, even knowing it's a trap, and that's why he's starting to doubt the plan a little. Zhangqiu replies that obviously, that's not what's going to happen since first, he'll send some minions, and to be honest, he believes that to force the leader to show up in a place where he'll be totally at a disadvantage, they'll have to eliminate all the minions that are sent. He emphasizes that not a single one is to be left alive. The whole army gets ready, and a vulture holding the crystal ball flies over the place. Saruthul watches everything from his box seat and says he thinks the Demon King is an idiot since there's no way his army could fall to a bunch of little creatures standing like posts. He admits he feels sorry for Fikimir, but his real plan is just one, explaining that his goal is to completely destroy the plantation, and that's why he sends more spirits. The little monsters approach and soon advance, as the order was clear to completely crush all the potatoes. After the spirits enter the warehouse, the MC announces that he already knew, and everyone is surprised because they are now facing the Demon King. He says he already figured the harvest spirits would show up, and with a frightening look welcomes them to the graveyard. They are terrified in the face of this situation, and the MC reflects that when he first encountered those bastards in the game, it was a total nightmare, since he is aware that they are the second trusted legion of Saruthul, even though the problem already starts with the fact that those wretches always move in packs. He still remembers that, when attacking, the spirits would cling like ticks, sucking all the life force and, on top of that, stealing whatever abilities he was using. So the monsters were even more busted than the monsters in Dark Souls. He thinks about this, but also knows there's a way to fry the damned, and yells, asking who's going to be the first to become a memory, since he knows it's just a matter of attacking with an item that has lightning attribute. The spirits realize it's a trap and tell everyone to run, but the MC, excited, says the trap is just getting started, and they don't understand what the red stain on the door is and ask if it's blood. That was the blood spread by the MC, who even did it all night long. And he gets ready because he needs to use the skill that Kratos uses in the second phase of the fight. He uses his lightning technique, which starts to run through all the blood spilled in the warehouse, and, upon reaching the door, spreads throughout the place, frying the spirits one by one. The MC yells that now the monsters are vulnerable to physical attacks, and that's why it's time to launch the agricultural troop. Immediately, the low-level demons appear, and all charge toward the monsters. Zhangqiu reflects that those demons may look like dry sticks and useless, but he knows they're endgame monsters, and everyone celebrates since they managed to obliterate the spirits easily. The MC tries to understand the feeling he's having, as he feels like an alpha demon king, with not a drop of mercy, and on top of that incredibly intelligent, since everything points to him being a perfect genius for that world. Then he notices that some spirits haven't turned into barbecue yet and decides to attack personally, frying each one of them. He positions himself on the pile of potatoes, and suddenly, Flute appears in the middle of them. He gets startled, trying to understand who that girl is, and since when she's been there. To make it worse, one of the spirits charges at her since she's an easy target, and the girl's father screams in despair for her to run. The MC doesn't like this, since there's always someone to slow things down, but he doesn't care because he can eliminate all the spirits at once, though he's worried the blood attack won't get there in time. Without thinking much, he throws a potato at the monster and thinks it can't be real what he just did, since he doesn't understand why the hell he threw a mere potato at a monster like that, as if it could stop anything. The food hits the monster's head and somehow starts sucking its life force, making a red aura form around it. The MC doesn't understand what that is until some sprouts emerge from the potato and it falls back onto the pile. Then the remaining spirits start trying to flee. The MC, the Demon King, does nothing as he's trying to process what just happened, since somehow a sprout emerged from the potato. Only then does he realize what it might have been, since the harvest spirits accelerate aging and ended up activating the biological clock of the potato that was paused. He grabs Flute by the hand and with a devilish look laughs and says she did great. However, in her view, it's completely terrifying to the point she almost faints from fear. The MC turns and yells for the agricultural troop to pay attention, as they are to forget the plan to lure Saruthul. He grabs a potato and announces that it will be more advantageous to invade first. The next day, under the scorching sun, Asura wakes up dazed once again, wondering who he even is and why the hell he's still alive. He notices the sun is beautiful and is still grateful to be able to face it. Suddenly, his stomach starts growling, and he realizes it's all because of the will to live. Suddenly, someone calls him. It was Flute, saying that he taught her about potato sprouts, and in the end, everything worked out, and she even got a bunch of chunos as a prize. She also explains that the Demon King recruited a battalion of agricultural troops and tried to make the potatoes sprout. However, the general, thinking of nothing else, yells that it's food and starts shaking his head like a maniac. She asks if she is really hungry, but says she will give a little. Then she throws the first grain, which hits the general right in the eye. He starts shouting, asking them to watch the damn direction. The little girl apologizes and tries again, hitting the other eye, but one of the grains goes into her mouth. He swallows it immediately and admits it was delicious. A notification appears to the MC saying that part of the demon army is happy from eating, so one more happiness point was added, and his current points are 302. He reads this notification and doesn't understand where these points came from, although he suspects the brat had something to do with it, but doesn't understand who the other person fed was. He smiles since he doesn't care what happened, because the more points the better, as he needs to save up to fight Saruthul. Because of this, he shouts for his entire agricultural troop to advance. They reach the fortress and stand before the huge bridge, but the spirits waste no time and start cutting the ropes holding it up. They finish cutting and burst into laughter, wanting to see what they will do now. However, the MC doesn't let himself be intimidated and jumps, but cannot reach the other side. The spirits laugh, calling the Demon King an idiot because he fell right into the trap and threw himself like a fool. But their joy is short-lived, as when they look down, they see the MC inside the mountain, completely naked. Seeing this leaves them speechless, not understanding what the hell is happening. The MC, once again abusing the bug, puts on his clothes and takes them off, repeating the process until finally reaching the top. The spirits are terrified, asking what the hell that was. He points his finger at the generals since his plan is going as agreed. Then he starts advancing, knowing the harvest spirits are terrified of the potatoes. Although he doesn't know how a cursed potato will be, They start mocking him since he is alone without any hellish potato, so he orders the harvest spirits to advance. They obey without hesitation, and the MC realizes it's time to use the final move and starts using his quantum jump, bugging through the wall again. He is naked until he disappears. The spirits don't understand what's happening since they see the Demon King moving in a bizarre way and didn't know he could pass through walls or move upward. The MC keeps moving, always using his bug, and the spirits try to catch him even without understanding what's going on. The MC thinks he has played that game a total of 19 times, so there is no part of that map he hasn't explored, having searched every area where those damn creatures appeared until they gathered in one place. He reaches that place where all the spirits are gathered. He takes a deep breath, and the monsters attack, saying the Demon King is finally tired since not even a lord can endure that place. But he, with a sinister look, says they are wrong, because at that moment it is no longer the Demon King but a veteran player. Suddenly, Zephyro shouts the order, and all the demons of the agricultural troop start throwing potatoes toward the spirits to make them germinate. One by one, they are hit and turn red. The MC opens his hands and says he is a farmer. Zephyrus observes this and thinks he initially doubted, but once again, as the Demon King said, things are coming together. He remembers the MC saying he would gather the spirits in one spot and that the agricultural troop should follow him. The servant showed the map, which is an old abandoned irrigation canal, basically a dead end with nothing special. However, the MC smiles and says there is actually something there and reveals a secret shortcut. He thinks that place is after the slope of the horrendous dead and just before the final entrance to the map, having found it by searching every little corner. At the time, while playing, he found it strange since there was nothing in that location, and yet it was built with great care. But that made him question why the texture was different, so he started attacking until a passage opened. He decided to explore and realized the path led directly to that corridor where the first round against Saruthul takes place, and it was the place he thought was inaccessible and could only be reached after finishing the game. In that place, it was possible to get the elixir of metamorphosis. This elixir contains the soul compressed from countless piles of dead flesh. It can only be consumed once, but the effects are unknown. He remained silent while his army celebrated, since the potatoes had sprouted and now it was only a matter of planting. Duroc cried with emotion, shouting that now he and his daughter could live with full bellies. Immediately, the Demon King changed his expression, remembering his grandmother saying he must be starving, and everyone said that old lady would guarantee a hearty dinner, until he remembered the ambulance taking her away, which brought him down. He said that if anyone disturbed his chance to eat in peace, they would pay with their life. Suddenly, the general called him and said Saruthul was strong and would also help. However, the MC asked him to carry the potatoes, since as king he would handle the situation alone. Meanwhile, the Stellar Master was channeling energy into the grand heart of ice. He shouted that with that supreme freezing power, he could capture more tormented spirits, and therefore wanted to grant more powerful soldiers. Then the MC appeared, kicking him in the head without him noticing. Saruthul, outraged, asked how the hell he found him there. Yang Chul, with a sinister look, replied that it didn't matter since it was time to fight. They stared at each other for a moment, and the bearded man called him a fool for coming there thinking he could win alone. Immediately, he began to dematerialize and, using his power, said the Demon King had never seen his true power. However, the MC thought he had seen it before, not once or twice, but 19 times. He reflected that while playing, he kept chasing that boss around that cursed cliff and kept running into his henchmen all the time, and in the end, he practically wiped out all the monsters in the place. That boss kept fleeing to the room with the Heart of Ice since it was a formidable artifact created by an ancient dragon who gave his life to generate that crystal, and rumors said it could freeze even souls and trap the dead in the world of the living. In his memory, Saruthal kept trying to use that power to recruit more monsters until the paladin arrived and the final fight began. He reflected that he was even tired of seeing that lousy skill. The bearded man continued his materialization and, looking at the Demon King, shouted that he did find him strong, but didn't believe it was enough to face him. Soon after, he reached his final form, taking on the same appearance as the MC. This made him realize he already knew that skill since it copies all the target's abilities and even their attributes. However, when he played, his character at the end of the campaign was in God mode with everything maxed out. The strength was absurd, and the dodge was almost impossible, so if he slipped up, he took a single hit and was dragged away. Thinking about that relieved him, since what was copied was nothing more than the current Kratos, and excited, he knew his skills currently were not that impressive to be copied. The boss did not waste time and went on the attack. Only after seeing Saruthul transform did he activate the system that asked him to use happiness points to improve attributes, and currently, his stamina was at 30%, mental strength at 20%, physical strength 20%, dexterity 20%, and magical power 20%. Since he currently had 302 happiness points, he used 50 of those points to raise his dexterity to 30%. At the same moment, he dodged the attack and landed a punch right in the boss's stomach. Saruthul feels the blow very strongly, but tries to attack once more, thinking it was luck. However, the MC spends another 50 happiness points to increase his strength to 30% and counterattacks with both punches colliding. But the one who feels the blow is the boss, who starts screaming in pain and asks how the Demon King didn't feel anything. He replies that it's also necessary to use your head, since to plant you need to be smart. Saruthul gets furious hearing this and decides to use his bloody move copied from the MC. He wastes no time and spends another 50 points to increase his magical power to 30% and also uses points to raise his mental strength to 30%. Both abilities collide, but the boss screams in fear because his is weaker until he is hit squarely, electrocuted so much that he melts like jelly, turning into just a slime on the ground. The system seems to inform that the points were used to enhance all attributes, and, because of this, all 5 attributes are at 30%, since a notification arrives stating the growth mission, which was to increase all attributes, was successfully completed. As a reward, a new skill was unlocked, summoning the Farmer's Throne, costing 100 happiness points to unlock. This is the throne of the Farmer King, equipped with a variety of sturdy agricultural tools. Yang Chul is surprised by this achievement because he really needed new things. Suddenly, Saruthul, who was in slime form on the ground, calls for the Demon King and starts shouting, asking if he really thought he had won. He replies that he's not even impressed since there's always a second phase in the final stretch. The boss transforms again and says that this is his true form, turning into the ancestral power of the evil dragon. The MC is surprised and admits that seeing it live is even more insane, and that his attack power and health bar are no joke. Then, with a smile, he says, the fun is about to begin since the general, along with the other soldiers, arrived kicking down the door ready for battle. Excited, he asks if he's going to face them. The dragon stares at the army and, worried, asks if maybe they want to have a chat first. But it's no use because the agricultural army charges full force. While attacking, they shout furiously about how someone could interfere with their plantation, and all Saruthul can do is beg to be spared. The MC just watches from afar and imagines that if he fought alone, he might even win, but believes taking a life with his own hands would be a bit much, and is surprised since everyone is insanely strong, even though they're hungry and have been fighting for a long time without anyone dying yet. After winning the battle, the Farmer's Throne skill was unlocked, and the remaining happiness points dropped to 2. The MC wastes no time and summons his new skill. Tools start descending from the sky toward where the army is, hitting the ground hard and causing a shockwave. Yang Chul is confused because the throne falls directly on Saruthul, finishing him off, and the demons approach the new skill to see what it is. They immediately start shouting excitedly because the Demon King grabbed the beast nearly lifeless and made sure to crush his skull on the last hit, thinking it's brutally awesome, worthy of a true Demon King. While everyone celebrates, he approaches and, although it wasn't his intention, shouts to his army celebrating this new achievement. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, Asura is still on the cross along with Fikimir until the creature becomes a poor soul, saying it's time to go to heaven since his master was defeated, leaving only the general on the plowed field. Now the potato sprouts have germinated, and the pests threatening the harvest were eliminated. Then, excited, the MC shouts that it's time to plant. However, before leaving, the Ice Heart starts making noise, catching the Demon King's attention. The system informs that there was an active mission: defeat Saruthal at the Cliff of the Dead. 20 attempts were completed. Seeing this surprises him, since apparently the 19 previous times he achieved this feat in the game were also counted. Then, as a reward, a secret event was activated. The heart of ice begins to tremble, and it is reported that a sealed origin trapped in the heart of the spirit of ice has awakened due to misuse. Smoke starts to come out of the crystal until it opens. He decides to approach, not knowing what it is, and sees a creature coming out of it. He wonders if it is a dragon, and the creature, looking at the Demon King, just smiles, growling cutely. He starts walking toward the dragon, and the animal wonders if that being is its father. He stretches out his arms and takes his hand. The dragon imagines that when it hatched from the egg, it was all dark and terrifying, and believes that finally, its father has come to fetch it. However, the face Jiang Qiul was making was terrifying, and even though he called it cute, the dragon was terrified, wondering if that was really his father. The whole army starts to return to the Demon Kingdom, implying they plan to devour the animal at once. The dragon begins to worry, since the situation feels strange until the MC shouts, asking if they are idiots because they need to let it grow first to have more meat. Then, the creature starts crying, wondering if its father will really eat it. Yang Chul notices something upon returning and sees several children excited to see their parents come back, along with other demons celebrating the king's return. Families are happy with the reunion, and the dragon finds this strange since everyone is exuding a very good warmth and concludes that the creatures no longer seem scary. However, he quickly changes his mind when he looks at the Demon King's face, as he finds it terrifying indeed. Inside the castle, the dragon is trembling with fear in a corner of the room. He decides to look back and sees his father's terrifying expression and, because of that, starts trembling again, increasingly sure they are waiting for him to grow so they can eat him. Meanwhile, the MC is worried because he has no idea what to feed the baby and doesn't really know if a baby dragon eats lapidated yolk or something like that. At that moment, Zephyrus approaches saying, "As I predicted, I am having difficulties forming the garden beds." He thinks it sucks because he had already imagined this. After all, to plant, they need to make little mounds of soil between the crops or on the edges of the cultivated areas. However, something obvious is necessary, like soft soil. The agricultural troop is suffering. One of them asks if that really is soil because it looks more like a quarry. Another complains that his pickaxe simply broke. The baby dragon, seeing this, suspects that everyone has been enslaved and that he will be next. Jiang Chul looks worried since the place looks more like a mine than a plantation, and thinks that if things continue this way, it will take an eternity to remove those stones. He also starts thinking that if he uses the entire agricultural troop every single day, the chunos they prepared as rewards will run out quickly, and even with reinforcements from other lords, he believes it won't be solved so easily. He gets furious because he really wanted to be the MC of another manga that summons magical beasts, since he would just summon a giant wombat that would clear all those stones. He thinks about this and looks back, realizing how hard Flute is working despite all the difficulties. And observing this scene, he concludes he needs to stop whining and just think of a way to solve the situation since real agriculture has these difficulties. 7:214. Suddenly, the demons shout, "Blade Gale!" And this catches his attention because a giant hurricane formed in front of him, getting closer every second. He gets furious seeing this because he had completely forgotten that the Blade Gale was a random event that appeared in that desert area. He also knows that if caught by the hurricane, he will be sliced like sashimi in seconds. Because of this, he shouts for everyone to dodge and hide behind the rocks. Immediately, the agricultural troop starts running to a safe place, and Zhang Qiu does the same, thinking it's all crap, since even though the blade storm is far away, the force is still absurd, and concludes that the tension in the game doesn't compare to the terror in real life, since natural disasters are the biggest enemy of agriculture. While they were running, Flute starts running back, and that leaves the MC confused as to why she's doing that. She goes toward Asura, shouting for him since he's in the path of the hurricane. The girl's father starts shouting for her, but the MC just hands him the baby dragon and runs off, giving the order to protect the creature properly and that no one is to follow him or they'll be punished. Baal, worried, starts shouting, asking the Demon King not to do it since it's too dangerous. He, concerned, imagines that he is aware of the danger despite not wanting to lose his favorite lightning rod as well as one of his best assistants. And since agriculture was never a fairy tale of picking apples while smiling at the sunset, Flute reaches the cross and starts trying to pull it. Asura, seeing that, yells at her to get out of there since he can't do anything about it. The hurricane gets closer and closer, just like the MC, who is aware that farming is a fight to survive, so it's a war. With a seed in hand, he yells at Flute to get out of there immediately, and with a flying kick he breaks the cross, which starts to fall instantly, making Asura faceplant into the ground. The effect of the hurricane already starts hurting the Demon King, as well as the little girl who stubbornly tries to undo the knot to free the general, even getting hurt by the blades. He, seeing that, calls her an idiot since that knot can hold even the 4 generals, and it's not something she can undo, so she should run away immediately. At that moment, her body is pulled, but it was Zhang Qiu who grabbed her and the cross despite the strong wind pressure. The baby dragon keeps watching and imagines that his father isn't that strong, since he can feel the strength of the creatures. He screams with all his might, since he is being pulled by the hurricane and still keeps running with all his effort. The dragon is surprised because his father, even with all the difficulties, keeps going forward, but that doesn't last long, since as he runs, he starts losing strength until he feels all the pain from the blades to the point of dropping the cross and grabbing Flute tightly, since he no longer has the strength to run. Immediately, the baby dragon breaks free and flies toward the MC, since from the little he saw, his father is a good creature. He flies at full speed toward the hurricane, and after taking a deep breath, he uses his ice ability, which goes straight into the tornado. Zhang Qiu, already badly hurt, realizes that the wind is getting weaker and, seeing the baby dragon, concludes that the creature used the cold to reduce the upward air current. However, he knows that for a little dragon, that's too much, and sees no more hope. The hurricane starts spinning with full force again, but at least it gave enough time for Zephyros, Baal, and Dirac to show up and help carry everyone. Back at the castle, the MC is lying in his bed. The generals walk toward him, both with evil looks. Hartok comments that finally the demon lord is asleep and that he will cut off his head. Sergei agrees and warns that after dealing with the other 2 idiots, one of them will become a new demon king. They both agree to be allies until then. They open the door and enter the room, immediately walking toward the bed, ready to launch their attacks. However, they stop halfway, finding something strange since the demon lord has his eyes open and a frightening expression. They are stunned, as if they were expected, but decide to continue since it's the only chance they'll have. However, Baal and Asura enter the room, asking what the 2 think they are doing. The big guy warns that the demon lord is sleeping peacefully and that they should not disturb him. He also comments on the face he makes while sleeping, which is scary enough to be worthy of being called Demon Lord even while asleep. Saying that, he emphasizes that if they disturb the master's sleep, they will regret it. The one with the monocle admits he understands the musclehead saying that, but asks if Asura is in the same situation, wanting to ally with the Demon Lord who wants them to farm. He responds that he's not very excited about it, but owes his life to the MC, so he's just paying what he owes. Hartok then asks if he still hasn't realized that the farming potatoes thing is only causing problems, and is sure that besides not working, it will cause everyone to starve. So he wants to know if he doesn't mind that. Asura, without hesitation, replies that things are like that, and remembers little Flute working hard even though she's so young. For that reason, he says, if they want to survive, they must risk their lives, even though he prefers doing it fighting, since that's how he is. The one with the monocle makes it clear they will regret that, and leaves the room with Sergei. At that moment, the generals hear a noise in the room, and notice the Demon Lord has awakened. The MC, confused, says Asura's name, and the general asks if he happened to overhear the conversation, but makes it clear he's not on his side or anything like that. He's just paying for what he did or something like that. However, Jiang Chul, with a terrifying look, asks what the hell they are doing talking in his room. Asura is confused, but it's already too late as he receives a bloody blow that could be seen from outside the castle. They go outside, with Baal carrying Asura on his back, and the Demon Lord says they can't waste time and asks to call everyone to continue cleaning the lands. The general says that actually, the stones have already disappeared, and Zephyros was responsible. He is confused hearing that, until he sees his subordinate giving instructions to the farming troops. Seeing that, he approaches and asks the patrol what he did with all the stones. Zephyros points in a direction, saying he's with a certain animal. The MC looks from afar and asks if it's Tibone. The baby dragon is carrying the stones in his mouth as much as he can and flies back to carry more. He imagines he can't protect his father from the cutting wind since he's too small, but is determined to eat a lot to grow fast. While flying, he notices his father calling him and flies to him, leaving Jiang Chul excited to see his baby even while making a terrifying face. He reflects that the cutting winds don't appear often, and that if his baby dragon keeps looking at the sky and releases the freezing air at the right moment, they might be able to stop the hurricane, but he sees no other choice since not doing this would be a bigger headache. Then Zephyros says the stock of Chuno rewards is running out and asks if they should make more. The MC replies it's not necessary and reflects that the first enemy of farming is natural disasters and the second is cost, obstacles they need to overcome. Meanwhile, in the castle, Sergei is resting in her room until she removes her helmet. She, who is a beautiful blonde, shakes her hair and comments that the smell of manure does not go away even after so many days without going to the fields. At that moment, the MC calls at the door, saying they need to talk. She finds it strange since the Demon Lord had never been to her room before, so she asks what he wants since they have nothing to talk about. He says he really needs her help, and therefore asks her to please open the door. She becomes furious and just tells him to leave, but he insists, warning that he will come in. Sergei turns around yelling that they have nothing to talk about until she sees the MC almost naked crossing the door and becomes desperate seeing that scene. She then asks if he is crazy for entering a woman's room like that. Immediately, he crouches down, making her ask what the hell he is doing. The MC says that without her, he can't do anything. She doesn't understand this and is embarrassed. Jiang Chul reflects that to save costs, he is even willing to kneel since he needs her sharp blade at that moment. Sergei, still very embarrassed, says that if he needs it that much, she is willing to listen. He quickly notices her reaction and can't believe she suddenly became like that. They go to the warehouse and stand in front of the potatoes. The MC asks her to cut the potatoes since they need to cut them in half to plant. She hears this and becomes extremely angry, thinking she was tricked, besides cursing the Demon Lord by every name imaginable. He tries to explain that the job is simple and that she shouldn't cut potatoes with 3 or fewer sprouts, but if there are 4, then she can. He emphasizes that she should keep in mind the number of sprouts on each side of the cut since it needs to be equal. After giving the instructions, he holds the potatoes and says he will throw them, but Sergey makes it clear she never said she would do that. However, he throws them anyway, and without time to think, she prepares herself and with incredible skill slices all the potatoes exactly in half, cutting with absurd precision, leaving even the MC surprised. He starts checking them one by one and asks how she managed to cut with such precision. He turns and praises her once again, since he always knew she was the only one who could do that. She thinks about that half-hearted talk and gets curious since she won't fall for that flattery again, calling him a lying scammer. Immediately, he stands up with a frightening aura and approaches her. Then, he takes a cloth and wipes his sword until it shines. The general feels embarrassed and asks what he is doing. He replies that potato juice fell on it and it needs to be cleaned. She, dying of embarrassment, wonders if the Redamoinho is crazy since she doesn't understand why he is acting like that. Besides that look, which is sincere, warm, and deep. The MC notices the sword is very clean and admits that it's a good feeling, imagining that if the knife isn't cleaned well, diseases could spread to the potatoes, so it must be cleaned carefully. He approaches her again, and with his charming gaze asks her to please help since she is the only one who can do that. Inside, he thinks she is the only demon who can cut the potatoes while helping to store the chunos. Sergey, still shy, takes a deep breath and agrees to help this time. Inside, she calls the demon lord silly. He is happy with her answer and says he will fetch some boiled water and clothes to spend the whole night cutting together. She just doesn't understand why the demon lord is so excited, calling him silly again. After that, they continue cutting all the potatoes, and Hartok watches from afar, seeing the two in complete harmony slicing all the potatoes. He gets angry at this, thinking that Sergey is also one of the lower fools volunteering to serve the demon lord, just because she heard some compliments. Meanwhile, under the scorching sun, Asura is still on the cross, wondering what the definition of living is, and doesn't know what motivation a lightning rod has to keep going, since that hard life isn't worth it. Then Flute approaches and says that the elders have saved chunos for him, and asks him to play the game of throwing the chunos. He calls the brat and asks if she really believes that a great general like himself would play a game with a lower-class demon, and warns that he will devour her alive if she gets close. Anyway, she throws the food, but it hits his mouth. This makes him furious to the point of asking if she doesn't know how to play properly, and tells her to do it right. From afar, the monocle is watching, and concludes that Asura has already lost his mind, since he took so many hits that he can't think straight. Then he turns around because someone is shouting. It was the MC warning that they will finally plant the potatoes in the field. Hartok watches them, and concludes that he never expected anything from him. At the same moment, the agricultural troop begins to thank Sergey for having cut all the potatoes for them. She, a little embarrassed, replies that she didn't cut them for them. The monocle notices her expression and asks what kind of look that is, since it's not the expression of a great demon general. He also notices the lower demons crying because of the potato seeds and asks if they aren't ashamed of that. He concludes they are all idiots and inwardly announces that the greatest intellect of the demon race will take the throne of the demon lord. Meanwhile, the MC instructs to keep planting since soon the sprouts will grow and pierce the soil. He also warns that when this happens, they should start cutting the sprouts. Baal says he is very good at cutting, but the demon lord tells him to shut up and explains that each seed can produce 3 to 6 sprouts. With this explanation, he asks what is better, more or fewer sprouts. The demons respond that more is better, but the MC says they are wrong because fewer is better. They get confused and ask why fewer is better since more is always better, and believe that the demon lord must have gotten confused. Hartok, observing the matter, gets irritated and calls everyone bloody idiots. Then he asks them to think a bit, because if there are too many sprouts, they will steal nutrients from each other. In other words, the potato itself will have fewer nutrients. Jang Chul hears this from afar and admits being surprised, asking how Hartok knows this, and if he happened to have cultivated before. He replies by asking if they really need to learn something so basic, and explains that the sprouts and the potato share nutrients, which is obvious. The MC asks how many would be ideal, and he replies that the obvious answer is 2, but thinking a little more, he concludes that from a practical point of view, they could assume 1 is ideal. However, if that one breaks the potato's root, it could die. He also suggests they could create healthy soil artificially by adding fertilizer and tilling the land to improve air circulation. Everyone is surprised by that explanation, since he continues saying that the soil group won't benefit only the potatoes, and that there are also weeds that steal nutrients, so they will need to be removed. The demon lord simply can't believe what he just heard, and shouts for everyone to applaud since they have a genius in the army. Everyone starts shouting, "Genius! Genius! Genius!" And he gets stressed hearing that, while the demons don't stop praising him for a second. For a moment, he remembers that his mother always called him stupid, and turns around emotional, trying to hide that he is crying from emotion, not understanding why he is doing that. Then the MC approaches and calls him wise, saying that from that moment on, he will let him lead the farmer army as commander. Hartok inwardly thinks this is ridiculous since his intellect exists to steal and finish other species. However, Jang Chul shouts, asking what everyone is doing since they must show respect to the elite of the demon race. Everyone starts shouting that the general is the elite of the elite, and he, furious, thinks inwardly that everyone is inferior, but with posture, orders them to follow him from that moment on, imagining he will lead just a little since everyone before him doesn't stop shouting, celebrating the new leadership. At that moment, a notification announces that the MC won the psychological battle. He gets confused by this since he doesn't know what it is about. Another notification warns that he saw Bihal's neglected childhood and turned him into a loyal subordinate. He wonders if he really did this without realizing it. There is also a notification that Asura, who never had a friend, gained a new companion and reduced his violence. The MC doesn't understand which friend is being referred to. Meanwhile, Sergei's heart melted. She was a woman who had never been loved. He also established trust in Hartok, who just wanted to be recognized. Because of this, he can now unlock a new skill using 200 happiness points, and the new skill in question is blood vision. He is surprised since this skill wasn't in the game and is probably original, like the farmer's throne. The system explains that the skill allows him to see the near future of his target, currently up to 6 hours. It also notes that the target can be a living creature or an object, but his surprise comes immediately afterward, as the notification says it even works for the sky. This information excites him since he basically got a weather forecast. Meanwhile, somewhere between the abandoned lands of the demonic race and the human territory, specifically in the exile's village, a man arrives and says he is fully recovered. His subordinate greets him, saying it's a relief to see him well. Revai thanks him for all the care and confesses he wishes to be born with a stronger body next time. Deal laughs and replies that he wants to be rich like a noble who can boss others around. Revai finds that funny and turns to Kimchi, telling him they plan to return to the kingdom, and asks if he wants to come along. He, with a serious expression, says he isn't sure, since, as he said before, he doesn't remember who he really is and hasn't lived among humans because when he first appeared in that village, the residents did not welcome him well. For that reason, he questions if someone like himself would really be accepted anywhere. The two watch for a moment until Revai suggests he start by wearing different clothes. However, this doesn't happen when Dial asks if the hero really doesn't want to take off the strange clothes. The emissary believes Kimchi must really like them. However, the hero, in his thoughts, says he really wants to change clothes, but doesn't understand how they simply won't come off. as if they were part of his body. Rivaj thanks a resident for the kindness and says that living there just for being a descendant of an exile is very cruel, and explains that when he returns to the kingdom, he will tell the king the story. Kimchi observes this and imagines that Guy is a noble who is exploring the territory near the demons by royal order, and he is indeed not a proud person, but a kind and respectable one. This makes him wonder who he himself was, and concludes that he only remembers following orders and finishing others non-stop. Thinking about this makes him lower his head, since he doesn't know if he could do anything besides finishing others. Back in the demonic kingdom, the agricultural troop begins to see the sprouts growing and shouts in celebration since they are finally appearing. The generals come closer to see as well, since it is indeed growing. Flute runs to Asura to tell him the big news. He gets furious hearing this and asks what the hell he should do with that news. Then, the MC calls the agricultural battalion and shouts that the next phase will be burying, and asks the genie Hearttalk to explain better. He says burying means they will cover the sprout stems with soil to prevent the young potatoes from being exposed to sunlight, because if that happens, they will change color to the point of losing flavor and even becoming poisonous, thus called spoiled potatoes. Jiang Chul asks for applause, since that explanation was brilliant, which embarrasses the general. Then he looks up to check the weather that day, and thinks he ended up investing 200 happiness points in the weather forecast, and his blood vision has already evolved, with the activation condition being to stare for 200 seconds without blinking. However, he starts to make a face like a stray dog, since his eyes are burning, besides being tiring. The lower demons see this and believe that the demon king is crying with happiness because the sprouts have grown. After a while, the skill is finally activated, and for the next 6 hours, the weather is expected to be predominantly clear and dry, suggesting that it might be a good idea to put away the humidifier. The MC finds this interesting and tells Tibone that he will be able to rest well since there won't be that absurd windstorm. At this moment, Zephyros approaches and says he has an urgent report to give, explaining that the subordinate of the second Star Master has returned. They then return to the castle, and Lafloa soon introduces himself, saying he received the message about the ceasefire in agriculture and reports that the third Star Master, Ruster, attacked them, claiming that the Demon Lord has weakened and that he must take his place. The MC gets irritated by this because demons are all the same. Zephyros says that indeed, this is a problem, because if the third Star Master subjugates the second Star Master and they join forces, they won't be able to deal with them so easily. Jiang Qiul agrees and says that although they are low level, their numbers are absurd. He reflects that he needs to find a way before the second Star Master falls, even though he can't leave agricultural work abandoned for too long. The area under attack by the third Star Master is a subterranean abyss of the dead, also known as the Swamp of Decay, which compared to the game map is actually 10 times bigger and ridiculously far away. He goes to the abandoned opposite side, which should give bonuses in the game, and is located in the Demon Lord's castle, but it's not working. This makes him wonder how he can solve this and take care of agriculture at the same time. He stops to reflect, not exactly knowing why he's getting worried, and with his devilish face thinks that since he is the Demon King, the boss doesn't need to do anything directly. So he follows his plan, and Sergi makes a drama, saying she is not fighting because of him. Bahal proudly says he will follow his orders no matter what happens. The MC concludes that he can send 2 of his 4 generals to battle, and together with some strong demons, they can make a difference. He is aware that in the boss's area, the shortcut system is perfectly connected, including one that leads directly to the Swamp of Decay. Knowing this, he orders the long-range sprayer to be launched, since if he himself and Hearttalk focus completely on the battles, everything will go well. The Second Kingdom is in flames, and Planus, the second Star Master, is kneeling on the ground and confronts the adversary, asking how he dares to challenge the Demon King by committing treason. The demon approaches and states that this is a rebellion, saying he had no choice. This is Ruster, the third Star Master. He says that stopping that war will only bring ruin to their race. Planus gets even more irritated and says the Demon King promised to provide fertile lands, so they no longer need to fight humans for food. Ruster replies that this is not the problem, and with his weapon raised, he says that fighting with courage is the honor of their race. Suddenly, a weapon flies toward them and hits the Star Master's club squarely, throwing the weapon away. He turns to see what it is, and realizes it is two of the Celestial Generals. Sergi wastes no time and admits to Ruster that he is right, since their race was indeed made to fight. She says they love to fight more than anything, but asks how things ended up like this and why they started to like it at first, but admits she finally understands after observing everything that has happened recently. Flute is running with a big smile on her face. She opens the door of her house, shouting and asking her father to run to the field. After they return to the field, they are amazed to see the beautiful plantation that was created. Seeing this makes both the lower demons emotional and Asura, who also sheds tears because of it. Hartok and Zephyros admire from afar, as does the MC in front of his great achievement. The little girl runs calling for the Demon King, and Happy says that it is very beautiful and that she had never seen anything like it before. The MC just remains silent. Back in Sergi, she charges full force at the demonic master and attacks with her many swords. The opponent, being distracted, does not notice the tyrant approaching and is grabbed. She takes advantage of the situation and begins to deliver countless blows since her target is immobilized. Ruster starts begging her to stop and says he never said anything about finishing someone off, but that he was there to save lives, so he doesn't understand what they are doing. She reflects that, indeed, that is true, but she does not stop attacking, stating that sometimes they need to finish one to save many. He gets irritated hearing this since it doesn't even make sense. Meanwhile, the MC, in front of the flute, comments that indeed they finally started to grow, and there were several at once, and asks to cut the useless flowers immediately. The demons are upset about this, and Asura starts shouting, warning that he will never forgive the Demon King for being so cruel. Hartok liked hearing this since even in that scenario, the king remained the king. Because of that, he asks what everyone is doing since they must obey the order immediately. D-Rock, even upset, bends down to the flower and sees it sad. Another demon laments, saying he can't do it because they did everything to make them grow and had never seen something so beautiful in that land. The general, with little patience, warns that if they leave the flowers there, they will devour all the nutrients instead of the potatoes doing so, and the focus is to make the potatoes grow big and well-nourished, not a flower garden. The agricultural troops then obey, even though it breaks their hearts. The MC sees this excited because he liked hearing the word potato in his ears. After that, the generals return and report that they captured Ruster. The Demon King makes it clear that this is what you get for starting a rebellion, and that everything he built was destroyed by another, and that he will do something about it. The Stellar Master just asks to finish it already since a demon who lost his honor in battle deserves nothing but death. Without wasting time, the MC uses his ability frying the demonic master, but he laughs since he didn't even feel a tickle because he has excellent armor. Kratos asks if that really happened and if he didn't take any damage. Then he takes him to the plantation and uses a lightning rod, explaining that he actually found the job quite useful. Then he uses his ability again, making Ruster scream in pain and also asking to finish him off already. And since now he has a new lightning rod, the Demon King asks someone to take Asura off the cross since he's not recovering well and it's past time to retire him. They remove the bindings and Flute runs toward him to help, but stops halfway because his face was scary. The general kept saying that little demon girl humiliated him for too long, and that's why he wants to devour her first. She goes into shock seeing that evil aura of his. However, his legs fail, and he falls face first to the ground. He thinks it's all crap since it's been a long time since he walked until Bahal approaches him and picks him up in his arms. leaving Asura inconsolable to the point of asking what the hell he thinks he's doing since he's not a princess to be carried like that. The big guy ties him to his back to carry him and says it was an order from the Lord Demon since he'll stay like that for a while. The Prince of Darkness is furious about this, imagining he will never forget this humiliation. Meanwhile, the MC watching from afar confesses that he was worried that Crazy Guy would lose it again. Although, when he used his foresight ability, he soon knew the weather would stay the same for 6 hours, and so he let him go. He points his finger and says that the harvest day will soon come, so they need to speed things up. But deep down, he's calm since he has a super fast weed cutter that can wipe out the flowers in an instant. He also has a professional carrier that makes things much easier. He reflects that, in a way, the autumn harvest is not far off and the food is gradually running out. And even though the demons are used to hunger, he cannot see how tired they will be. At that moment, someone approaches calling for him. It was Planus, who introduces himself as the master of the second star and is there to express his gratitude for having saved him. The MC remains silent for a moment, as does the Star Master. Then he completely changes his expression to furious, leaving Planus confused about why he became angry. All Kratos can imagine is why that demon appeared empty-handed to thank him when he could have at least brought a drink or some fruit. The Master says he is currently gathering some subordinates of the third star and will soon put them to work. All the Demon King can think about is that the potatoes are growing very well, and he wants to harvest them as soon as possible to make chunos. He says he actually wants to see the demons eating until they feel full. Only then does he stop to reflect on why he started doing this. And while immersed in thought, the master of the second star warns that he will prepare the troops and leaves the plantation. The MC watches him leave and reflects that this master was one of the weakest and least developed, but liked the confidence he showed, as well as his great loyalty to the demon home. He also supposes that this demon is technically a plant, so in the end, he might be quite useful. As Planus walks through the plantation, he feels with his feet that the soil is very fertile and full of nutrients he had never felt before in his life. And after walking a bit, he imagines that at first it was just a seedling and therefore never grew based on nutrients. But he found that soil completely different because it was cultivated by Lord Kratos. He uses his power and begins to root himself on the mountain and concludes that he can become stronger in that terrain to the point of becoming the Demon King. He thinks about this, and his roots start to grow throughout the territory. The next day dawns, and the MC starts the day by shouting to the agricultural troop that it's time for the demonic morning exercise, and everyone immediately begins exercising. He coordinates the exercises, and everyone shouts excitedly, getting into the rhythm. The Demon King, excited, reflects that at first the lower demons were pretty bad, but over time they began to move according to his commands and, as expected, they have potential. He also noticed the same thing happens when he gives a surprise command, and with that, he orders them to roll to the left, and immediately the agricultural troop obeys without anyone making a mistake. Then, he orders them to roll to the right, and everyone obeys. He reflects that to work in the agricultural field, demons need stamina, and now they are going to do it without relying on a leader. At that moment, General Tyranno appears running and shouting that something terrible has happened. He says that all the potato leaves have turned yellow, which draws the MC's attention. Everyone goes to the field and notices the clear change in color of the potato leaves. Zephyros laments seeing this and asks if it's really going to be impossible to produce anything. Sergei gets discouraged seeing that. Hartok, on the other hand, can't understand what happened and wonders if it was the lack of wind or even the lack of water. This frustrates him, and he questions why the hell he put his hope into something that now seems like hopeless foolishness. The brother approaches the generals and goes to the potatoes. He crouches down, grabs a sprout, and pulls the potato out. This surprises the monocle, since he sees that the color of the potatoes is a bit pale, but still they are huge, even 2 or 3 times bigger than the first potato they planted. Kratos smiles and asks if they're not seeing the potatoes doing their job, And since they absorbed all the nutrients from the leaves and grew, in other words, became bigger and tastier. With that, he says that everyone did an excellent job and assures them that it was only possible thanks to them. All the generals get emotional hearing this since their work wasn't in vain. After that, already at night in the castle, the MC is lying in bed thinking about the praise he gave to the demons. This makes him remember his past life, when he had planted a tomato plant, and his grandmother said the tomatoes were growing very well and praised Yang Chul, saying it was thanks to him. The next memory was of her entering the ambulance, and all he could do was scream desperately seeing his grandmother intubated. After reflecting on this a bit, he turns over and starts thinking that such sentimentality is useless, since as a demon king, who is supposed to be such a cold being, he shouldn't feel things like that. He is also aware that soon they will have hundreds of potatoes to eat, but they still can't let their guard down, since if they rely too much on potatoes, they could literally end up starving, and if there is any plague on them, just like the famine in Ireland. In other words, he is aware that the potatoes will solve the problems for now, but they will have to plant other types of seeds soon. Suddenly, he feels a strong tremor and gets up, asking what it is and if there's a problem in the castle. At that very moment, a crack forms and a root bursts from the ground, destroying everything and growing huge in front of him. The MC is shocked seeing this and asks what the hell that is. Outside, Flute is still in the fields, and, carefully observing the leaves, she remembers that the Demon King had said that when the potatoes grow, the leaves would naturally fall. But she still finds something very strange and starts digging, since she is sure something is wrong. She pulls out one of the potatoes and is shocked since the vegetable simply disappeared. She gets ready to run, needing to inform the adults, but soon becomes paralyzed as the castle is taken over by several giant branches. The MC was captured by the branches, and the Star Master appears laughing, saying the Demon King looks more like an insect. He can't believe it since that creature is really Planus, who had helped just moments ago. The Master says that thanks to the nutrient-rich fertile soil he created, he grew that way. Only then does the MC realize and imagine what happened to his plantation, and this makes him furious, screaming that he is a bastard and still wanting to know what the hell he did to the plantation. The Star Master asks if by any chance he's angry and what he's going to do about it. He says this and, moving the MC from one side to the other, throws him hard to the ground, seriously injuring him right away. Meanwhile, the generals are running around desperately trying to understand what's happening, while Bahal asks to be released since he needs to save the Demon King. Sergi and the Asura ask if he's crazy, since even if they tried to do something, it would be impossible against that star demon. However, the tyrant general doesn't care, emphasizing that indeed the demon lord is weak, and he found this out when he was helped by him, and for that reason, he is an extremely fragile being. The destruction in the castle continues until Planus takes his colossal form after absorbing so many nutrients from the earth, and the MC has nothing to do, just falls from that great height. The generals look up, and Zephyros is shocked, asking if that creature is really Planus. The Star Master commands everyone to pay attention, and with his horrifying voice, announces that Kratos is dead. All the generals can't believe it, nor can his servant and the baby dragon. The lower demons are also frustrated by this, especially Flute, who bursts into tears. Planus continues his announcement, saying that he should remember the old demon law, that power belongs to the strongest, and for that reason, he declares that from that moment on, he is the new Demon King and orders everyone to bow before absolute power. Hartok reflects on the situation and realizes that it's possible to feel that the Star Master absorbed all the nutrients from that land, and since Kratos is out of action, that being is the strongest. Because of this, he bows, thinking that demons always follow the strongest. Sergi is frustrated with this situation and also bows, as do Bihal and the Asura. Zephyros simply can't believe the situation he's in, and the Asura asks what he's waiting for, since he must show proper respect. Four Eyes, seeing no other option, also bows, and everyone is bent before that colossal demon, and all Zephyros can do is cry for the death of his king. Meanwhile, the MC finds himself in another place, and his mother calls him from when he was a child, asking to play hide and seek. He finds that day strange and asks if it's a dream. His mother asks him to close his eyes tight, that she will count to 10, and only then should he try to find her. The child starts counting, and after finally reaching 10 starts asking where his mother is. Since he can't find her, he begins to scream in despair, begging his mother to come out, and asks if by any chance counting to 10 again will make her appear. Kratos watches that scene with his head down, since all his child self could do was scream for his mother, crying and saying that he had just finished counting, and for that reason wants his mother to appear. Suddenly, a system message calls out to Jang Cheol, telling him to wake up. He finally opens his eyes and tries to understand what happened and if a message really called him by name, and so he asks the notification where it is and if by any chance he lost his life. The system tells him to move, since if he does, he might survive. He wonders if he'll be able to use the glitch, but soon concludes he can't, since there isn't even room to turn his body. However, he realizes that at least his hand can move, so he decides that even slowly he will start digging, and he begins to do so repeatedly, and even in pain. He continues, since he can't give up. Meanwhile, outside, Planus asks the scribe to come closer. Zephyros approaches and introduces himself, saying he is a record secretary. Then the Star Master asks him to record it accurately, since that is the first grand step, and because they are about to begin the invasion of human lands, making it clear that they will dominate all humans and raise them like cattle to become food. Hartok laments, since apparently they've returned to the starting point. Asura thinks it's good since at least it will be fun because he'll be able to fight and finish off as many as he wants. Sergei imagines that this is how demons have always lived after all, and if it means filling his belly, then so be it. Bahal, however, doesn't think about anything. Meanwhile, all the generals try to understand why that situation is making them irritated. At the same time, the MC keeps trying to get out of the rubble but feels suffocated since he can't breathe properly. Meanwhile, Planus orders all the demons to grab their weapons because it's time to march. Zephyros thinks of something and tells the new demon king that they can't go to war right now. The demon doesn't like what he hears, and all the generals get worried by that look. The secretary tries to explain that the only food they have is a few small potatoes, and that wouldn't even feed half an army. Planus asks if that was the problem, and says that actually they have more than enough. Then, with his branches, he attacks and captures Flute, leaving her scared, just like her father, who starts screaming in desperation. That catches Asura's attention immediately. Planus shows the little girl and says that there are a bunch of weak and useless demons there and orders them to be used as food. She starts screaming, saying it's not like that, since nowadays they can live without devouring each other, and screams louder and louder, saying the king promised them that. He watches the girl screaming like that and drops her from that great height. Meanwhile, the MC is still under the rubble and realizes his heart is stopping, but concludes that if he dies, all the demons will starve. So he opens his eyes and uses the bloody strike on himself, electrocuting his own body. He decides he can't let the others go hungry again and starts digging again, screaming with all his strength to get energy, and with that, he manages to dig, even if slowly. Outside, Planus is staring as Asura simply saved the little girl, holding her in his arms. The MC keeps trying to climb, and whenever his heart tries to stop, he uses his bloody impact to wake himself up, but he realizes he's too tired. Then he realizes something and starts reflecting on whether he still has far to go, or if at least he's heading in the right direction, and whether what he's doing still has any meaning. Thinking about that makes him feel even more down. Outside, all the generals are wide-eyed, seeing Asura holding the little girl. Flute is speechless after being saved, and the Stellar Master asks if he's gone completely crazy. The Blood Prince just keeps staring until he feels an earthquake and realizes it's the colossal demon approaching. He becomes terrified and tries to play it off by saying that the little girl is his snack, since he had his eyes on her for a long time. However, Planus isn't convinced by that nonsense and hits Asura hard with his branch, sending him flying past the generals and leaving him unconscious on the ground. Zephyrus laments seeing that since he can't do anything about it. The Stellar Master once again says they should prepare for battle. The Four Eyes gathers courage and shouts that there's no just reason to do this. As soon as he says that, one of the branches attacks him, but the Tyrant General moves with his axe and blocks the strike, making Planus even more irritated. Bahal shouts that the Demon King left a task for the secretary, so he asks who will count the potatoes if he dies. The Stellar Master asks if they're suggesting a mutiny. Hartok immediately answers no, as that would be unthinkable, but emphasizes that they believe the proposal of the former Demon King, Kratos, to invest in agriculture was a much more sensible order. Sergei asks to pose a question and says the former Demon King showed a path where no one had to die, and, because of that, questions why go to war if there's already another solution. Planus loses his patience, since he's being confronted, and begins summoning several roots while shouting that he is the strongest there, and therefore everyone must submit. However, they refuse, saying that true strength is born from what is just, so all the generals prepare for battle. The lower demons also scream that the true king is only Kratos, and, because of that, they warn that he will pay for what he did to the plantation. Immediately, the roots go toward the demons, but Hartok doesn't let that happen and uses his mist barrier, blocking the attacks and defending the agricultural troop. Bahal places Sergei in his hand and throws her into the air, giving her the chance to slice all the branches that were attacking. Then she looks directly at Master Esteller and shouts that she will start by ripping out his eye first. However, he finds this funny, and besides blocking the attack, also captures the generals with extreme ease. Then he warns that they are going straight to the canopy for trying to challenge the new Demon King, and makes it clear that he is 1,000 times more magnificent than the weakling Kratos. While attacking all the troops, he says that the former king was nothing but a weakling who died without even reacting, and, because of that, asks what that being had that was so special, since he saw nothing remarkable in that idiot. He prepares to deliver the final blow to Zephyros, who tries to save Flute until he hears a voice from the MC asking why hurt his self-esteem like that. Then he appears with his fist closed, blocking the attack that was headed toward his secretary. Next, he pulverizes the branch instantly. Planus is shocked to see him alive, unlike Flute, who immediately smiles upon seeing him. The system appears saying that the MC has acquired a new system and ability at the brink of death, and the concentrated nutrition has been activated. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.